Well, it's a nightmare in Nashville, and the rivalry, the border war is back. We'll talk about it all. This is Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Dave Matter, Gabe DeArmond, and I'm Bo Bayman. Welcome to Tiger Sidelines. The Tigers lose 21-14 to Vanderbilt. A couple of things. We will talk about basketball a little bit later on, but we're going to talk about the football game. I'm sure in the tweets we'll have to talk about firing a coach, but we're not going to do it in the first segment. Let's just talk about what the heck went wrong on Saturday in Nashville.
Everything on the offense. I mean, I know I showed up. I'm not sure Missouri's offense did. I mean, that was, I still stand on the fact I'm surprised Missouri was only favored by 21. And I will say that after watching them lose 21-14, Vanderbilt is not very good, and Missouri was rolling through everybody for 5 weeks. And then they just decided, against Barry Odom's warnings, you can't just roll out your helmets and expect to win. And they thought that that would work for them.
Absolutely. It was one of those games where they looked uninspired, and it started, quite honestly, Gabe, with the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you go through every position on offense, I mean, Larry Roundtree has failed to show up for way too many games for what this team needs for him. Jonathan Johnson has become invisible. The line is worse than it was last year. But above all that, to me, was the quarterback play on Saturday. And just last week, I was saying, what I've been impressed with about Kelly Bryant is he can bounce back from bad plays and he can rescue it, and he seems to be a guy that drags his team along. He was absolutely not that. I mean, he started out just kind of blah and just got worse as the game went on.
In talking to Tiger fans after the game, it seems to me like a lot of them were yelling at the TV for him to throw it.
Yeah, and I thought he was ducking out of the pocket too soon. Now, he was under some pressure. You know, he was getting smacked pretty hard back there. I didn't think his line held up very well. But still, he looked gun-shy back there, and he looked like, I'm just going to try to run this. And then he still didn't even run very effectively either. It was just like, you can't just say he was trying to do one thing wrong. He just didn't seem right at all.
He ran to get out of the pocket, but he didn't really run. And I've noticed this well before this week. There were a couple plays where, you know, I was watching this on TV, so you get that overhead view. I mean, where he hands the ball to Larry Roundtree and then carries out his fake outside. He keeps the ball. It's a 60-yard touchdown. I mean, it was stunning the number of times he just made the wrong decision because he's missing open guys, but then he's throwing to Albert in clear bracket coverage that ball has no chance.
Yeah, unless Albert goes up and gets it, but it was way overthrown in the end zone and an easy interception. But back to Dave's point, Gabe, and you mentioned it too, the offensive line was terrible. The running game couldn't get going. They couldn't block anybody, and this was Vandy.
I mean, if you look, I think Yasir Durant has been similar to what he was last year. He might be a little bit worse. Right. But at every other position on the line, the returning starters are worse than they were last year, and the guys replacing the guys who were here last year. Now, Case Cook replacing Kevin Pendleton might be an upgrade because Pendleton didn't have a very good year. But, I mean, replacing Paul Adams has been worse. Tristan Castillo has been worse. And, like, you don't want to just single out one guy, but the biggest drop-off on that line to me has been Trevor Sims since last year to this year.
No question about it. And so the offense just couldn't get going. I mean, they tried Beatty, they tried Roundtree, they tried Dawson. Nobody could get any yards. And this is a Vandy team that people have been steamrolling through.
And I think this is more alarming than if they went out there and turned it over 3 times and still had 400, 500 yards like they did at Wyoming. Remember that game? I mean, it was like, well, it's just turnovers because if they don't turn it over, they're scoring all the time because they couldn't. Wyoming couldn't stop them. Vandy consistently stopped them. Went 5 3-and-outs. They punted 7 times, and you can't even think of like, well, here's the key play on offense that really sank them because the interception was bad in the end zone, but they just got nothing going.
And the other thing that was terrible was the kick game. The kicking game was atrocious.
Well, and like last week was a bad week, but I don't. At this point, blame Tucker McCann. I just want to know where this blind faith Barry Odom has in him is. Because, he's a great kickoff guy. He's been a pretty good punter. As a place kicker, this is what he's been for 3.5 years. I mean, you never know, no matter the distance, no matter the time, no matter the situation, whether the ball is going in or not. And Barry Odom continues to act like he has Jeff Wolford at kicker, and he just doesn't.
And when some people have asked me saying, is it catching up to him that he's doing both the punting and the? I'm like, this is what he's been.
Yeah.
I mean, he just hasn't improved.
His numbers were really good as a sophomore. He only missed like 1 or 2 field goals. He didn't kick as many, but he's kicked a lot more, had a lot more attempts the last 2 years. Last year they led the country in field goal attempts. So the percentage has gone down and down and down. I just wonder if it's a thing with Barry where if you bench him once, do you lose him forever? And what if the backup is no good? Then where are you?
I don't even know if you have to bench him, but what shocked me was you can't kick a 48-yard field goal down 7 with 6 minutes. I understand it was 4th and 7 from the 30-yard line, and your offense had done nothing, but you're not making that field goal. And even if you make that field goal, it doesn't matter.
You still need a touchdown.
Yeah, you have to go for it. And then when the defense needed to get the ball back, it couldn't get the ball back.
Yeah, it's hard to – it feels like picking on the defense because they gave up the one long touchdown play, a missed tackle on the touchdown pass. Otherwise, all they didn't do was get more turnovers and score. I mean, they held Vandy to an okay day. They just weren't outstanding, but they were on the field a lot, and especially there in the fourth quarter.
Now the question becomes: as they fall to 2-1, they're 5-2 overall. They drop out of the SEC or the AP poll, and really they drop out of the SEC East sole possession. Still, everything's in front of them, and that's what they said at Media Day this week. But you're staring 8-4 in the face.
Hey, that sure seems likely. I mean, I've never thought Georgia and Florida were going to be 2 wins. I've always thought, I think they can win one of them.
Right.
And now, that's pretty hard to see because, yeah, Georgia's worse than we thought, but it's at Georgia, and I think they'll be up for that game. And Florida, which seemed the more winnable one, is quite a bit better than we thought.
And I also think if you can lose to Vandy, losing to anybody else is on the table.
They can lose this week.
No, there's no automatic wins left on the schedule. Now, Tennessee and Arkansas are bad, but Tennessee's they've shown a pulse. They hung with Alabama for a little bit. That team we saw Saturday in Nashville couldn't hang with Alabama. So,
No.
And that's not to say I expect them to lose out or anything like that, but maybe everybody got ahead of ourselves a little bit talking just about Georgia and Florida when, hey, maybe you should show up in Nashville first.
Yeah, no question. And Gabe just mentioned it. They have a bad history with Kentucky, and now they got to go on the road and go to Kentucky to try to right the ship. They're 0-2 on the road.
But you know what they have a good history with? Like when we've piled 5.5 feet of dirt on Barry Odom, he reaches his hand through the ground and comes through. I mean, this is the exact game they won last year at Gainesville, actually against a far worse team, obviously.
Dave, just looking at the stadium was not full, but it seemed like Mizzou fans traveled pretty decently.
Eyeball test, I thought there were more Missouri fans there. Now, they were all on one side across from the press box. The Vanderbilt fans were on the other side that were on our side, so you could have a better shot at the Mizzou fans. But I thought at kickoff, at the end of the first quarter when everybody was there, Missouri had more people there. So this is not oh gosh, why do they struggle on the road? Well, okay, there's some differences. You got to stay in a different hotel. You got to go on an airplane. This was not any kind of intimidating environment. Missouri had more fans there than they did than Vanderbilt did. So let's not say that this is a home road thing.
They just laid an egg. That's all you can say is they laid an egg.
Elevation in Nashville is like 580 feet, so that's tough to deal with.
Did they save Derek Mason's job?
For a week.
Yeah, for now.
I still think he gets fired at the end of this year, but you know what would be a better show than what we're doing here? We just play Derek Mason's post-game interview on a loop because that was amazing.
He was fired up.
That was like Bart Scott combined with Ed Orgeron levels of me not understanding what he was actually saying.
Honestly, credit to him. If I'm Barry Odom, I call Derek Mason this week. I'm like, hey, I need to do what you just did.
Yeah.
I have to follow an awful loss with, it's not an upset to beat Kentucky like Vandy beating Missouri was, but I need to get my team back after losing to you guys. So give Mason credit.
And give, I guess, Missouri the benefit of the doubt because they weren't the biggest of the week, considering Illinois beat Wisconsin. Yeah. So it kind of got buried a little bit just because of that game. But, again, a devastating loss. Now the question becomes, how does this team pick up the pieces?
Yeah, you can panic if they go lose this weekend. Oh, yeah. At that point, you can go, everything really for this season is out the window. I said at the beginning of the year, I thought 8-4 was going to be kind of, it's acceptable, but it's not progress. Right. And even if you manage to get to 8-4, this clearly should have been a 10-win football team because they've lost 2 games they shouldn't lose.
Absolutely.
They should be undefeated right now. And so now, and they said the right things, it seems to me, yesterday, Dave, saying, we back Barry and, hey, they probably should have said that about 2:30 on Saturday.
Let their play back that up instead. And I get it. You want to defend your coach against some some crazy stuff on social media. Maybe don't pay attention to the social media part of it. And I'm not saying that's a systemic problem on this team, but just go play the game and play it the way you played it the 5 weeks prior.
You know what strikes me though, not just this week, but after any loss, is how much more quickly the people involved in it just get over it and move on because they don't have a choice. I mean, like you would never have known when we were doing interviews yesterday whether Missouri had won or lost. It was just Tuesday, and they have to move on. But I mean, we're going to hear about this loss for 7 years. Like if Barry Odom wins the next 6 SEC championships, it's going to be, should have been 7 in a row if we wouldn't have lost to Vandy. Like it's amazing how much longer people hold on to this than the players.
I mean, think about when Troy went down and scored on their first series a couple weeks ago. I mean, my Twitter timeline was nothing but, here we go again against Troy. That was 2004, 15 years ago. So, yeah, you're right. It sticks in the brain of the fans.
Well, and when you have Vandy and Wyoming, it's going to be, hey, don't forget, let's not forget that year. Around the SEC last week, Florida came back to beat South Carolina. Georgia really struggled with Kentucky before beating them. The SEC East is weird, and it seems like Florida's the best team.
It does now. I mean, Florida, I thought, had a good, kind of solid, just Florida win at South Carolina, where you get to the end and you're like, I don't really know how good they are, but they beat everybody, and they're a better team with Kyle Trask at quarterback. I watched that game, and he has made that a better offense.
Texas A&M won at Ole Miss. Alabama, LSU, and Auburn also cruised to wins. So now it's Mizzou and Kentucky, and as we said, time to pick up the pieces, and you really don't have any. It's good that the bye week isn't this week because you got to go in and you got to play, and you got to forget about what happened last week.
Yeah, and you probably should forget about what happened against Kentucky last year too. I mean, the players were talking about it like, hey, they're really motivated by this. I'm like, I don't know, man. Maybe that's not the best thing for in between your ears right now. But whatever gets you up for the game. If you're Kentucky though. You're coming off a 10-win season. Now, granted, they lost a lot of players, but you're still a pretty proud program. You want to prove yourself, and you look at the schedule and say, we've beaten these guys 4 years in a row. This should be our win. So I don't think this is going to be a game where they just roll over by any means.
Well, and Kentucky's going to be favored in every game they have after this. Yeah. This is the last time. I mean, their schedule is awful in the last third of the season, but they've thrown 16 passes in 2 weeks. They were 2 for 5 for 17 yards with a wide receiver at quarterback. This to me is real simple. You just line 9 guys up in the box and say, look, if Lynn Bowden can throw the ball well enough to score enough points to beat us, then so be it. That's the way it goes. But you can't let him run for 150 yards.
And Missouri will be without Gillespie for the first half after that targeting, which was severe targeting.
It was bad. It's about textbook targeting. I know you don't want to say that he tried to hurt him because we don't know that, but man, he had every opportunity to let up and not crush his skull with his crown of his helmet, and he didn't.
The other thing that you see a lot of times when somebody's sliding is somebody will jump over him. He went right into him.
And, I mean, Barry Odom said he was already in position to make a tackle. Look, he didn't leave the ground till the kid was sliding. Yeah. I don't think Tyree Gillespie is a bad kid or a dirty player. But that play was rough.
And that rule is set up to not just protect the quarterback, that's protect Gillespie. You can't have a career if you're going to be doing that every week with your head. You just won't last.
No doubt about it. All right, Mizzou and Kentucky. Mizzou, an early 10.5-point favorite. We'll see what happens. When we come back, we'll see what happens on the old tweet machine. We got lots of them. We check Twitter when we come back right here on Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Welcome back to Tiger Sidelines. Dave Matter, Gabe DeArmond, I'm Bo Bayman. We're at Tiger Sidelines on Twitter. Let's get right to it. Steve says, which players appear most capable of demanding focused and disciplined play from his teammates? You know who it was? It was Cale Garrett.
Cale Garrett, yeah.
I mean, you can't demand that. Like I know Dave and Mitchell Forty were saying Nick Bolton, who played better than anybody, was saying the loss is all on me and all that. It's 22 guys that all got to do it on their own.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't buy into that stuff, and that's a coach's job. That's not the player's job.
And the coach can say whatever he wants, and still, if the players think, well, this is Vandy, we're just going to win, you can't change their mind.
That's right. Which is the bigger problem? Kelly Bryant not seeing open receivers who are not the primary target, or Mizzou receivers not continuing to create opportunities once there's a breakdown? And that goes back to the people, yelling at the TV saying, throw it, throw it, throw it. Dave, you were in the press box. That was a question I got, was were there people open?
I mean, I thought there were there are chances. Sometimes I think Kelly is trying to be too perfect, and he wants to find the guy that is wide open, and that's not going to happen, especially against man coverage. I mean, you're going to have to. Guys on this team haven't made any contested catches this year. Right. It's because they haven't really been given opportunities to. You look back, Chase Daniel completed like 70% of his passes at Missouri, but those guys had to go up and make tough catches all the time because he put the ball in position where they can. You don't really see that from Bryant.
The biggest play in that game, I thought, was Vanderbilt had third down on the drive that ended up winning the game. And the quarterback threw to Jared Pinkney, who wasn't open. Yeah. He was well covered, and Pinkney just went and made the play. Bryant, he'll do that with Albert in the red zone.
Right.
But that's about it. Other than that, it's if you're not wide open, I'm just going to run around. I might eventually throw, or I might just kind of go out of bounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick says, what are reasonable expectations of fans' buy-in for the rest of the year as Mizzou keeps playing loosey and pulling the football away, and the fan base is Charlie Brown falling on the ground?
Look, that's the biggest problem. Like I've been hard on this fan base, but it finally seemed like they were behind him and bought in, and then this happened. I can't tell anybody they should go to the floor to get whatever. Go if you want, don't go if you want, but it's not just the losses. They just come at the worst times.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's like Barry has a knack for pulling them back, like we said, when they're at their lowest. And he also has and it's not just on him, but he has a knack for just squandering momentum. Mm-hmm. And the program does, not just say it's him.
Absolutely. Do you think Mizzou will win another road game this year? Kentucky, Georgia, and Arkansas and Little Rock. Arkansas is really bad, but then there's...
Yeah, look, if they don't beat Arkansas, then I will be right with people saying maybe Barry Odom should get fired. Arkansas is awful. Yeah. Like, that game will be, assuming Arkansas is 0-7 in the league, Chad Morris has a chance to be the first coach in SEC history to lose his first 16 SEC games. And to avoid doing that, he has to beat Missouri.
How do you lose for the fifth time as a double-digit favorite? This loss is unacceptable, says Tony.
First of all, that stat is not true.
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
He is, I looked it up this morning, he is 15-2 as a double-digit favorite. The two losses have come this year. Gary Pinkel is a double-digit favorite, and this has taken out the first 5 years of his career. So we're just talking about Chase Daniel on. He was 41-5. That's an 88% winning percentage versus 89. It's exactly the same. This happens sometimes. Yep. The problem with this is, A, it's recent, and B, that it happened twice in the same year, right. Which, by the way, it happened twice to Gary Pinkel in 2004, year 4. Yeah. It's not that much different, guys.
Yeah, it's not.
Champ says, what is Kelly Bryant's strength? At this point in the season, they need to figure that out. His strength is not as a pocket passer. They need to reform the offense. The last 5 games are on his strength. Why doesn't he run more? The RPO reads are horrible.
And this question doesn't come up after the Ole Miss game, though, where he thought he threw it really well from the pocket, or even the Wyoming game where he threw it pretty well from the pocket. So it's a little recency bias. I do think he can function as a pocket passer, but he needs to add in the other element to make him better than average.
Nobody's ever going to say this out loud, but it's my personal belief, and I don't know, maybe you guys think I'm completely wrong, that Missouri made a deal when Kelly came here. We're going to do everything we can to make you an NFL quarterback.
Right.
And he's got an eye on that, and I think it's impacting his decision-making on when to take off and when not to. Yeah. Because I think he's trying to maybe show NFL scouts I can stand back here and do this.
He talked about that as a factor in Derek Dooley's history with Dak Prescott in Dallas, which I don't know how closely he really worked with Dak because he's a receivers coach, but he talked about that.
I mean, look, I got no problem with telling him that to get him here, but at some point in the second half, you have to quit calling the plays that aren't working, and, well, there were none that were working, so you can't call those.
Their problem is they were in 3rd and 13 so much because of penalties and a bad running game that you almost have to ask him to throw the ball, and he still couldn't.
And the thing you wonder, too, is his knee all right? I mean...
It looked fine against Ole Miss, though.
Yeah, that's right. What does Mizzou have to do to clean up this habit of playing down to competition?
Not play down to competition. I mean, like, everybody wants there to be some secret answer. I don't know.
I mean, they have to buy into what these coaches know. I mean, and what we know. Like, you just can't show up. You really can't. Like, I say all the time.
You can show up if you're Georgia, usually.
Usually, but you're not.
If you're LSU, right?
You're not.
That's the point.
Like, I've been writing the thing every Friday. What's Missouri's blueprint to victory? And responses to Vandy game, people wrote back, just show up. And now they're the same people that are saying you just can't show up. So what is it?
I said going into last week, I thought Missouri would win that game with a C effort. And they would have won that game with the C effort. They put out a D- effort.
Odom has the shiny new South End Zone facility and raises for his assistant coaches. And since the 17 Auburn postgame speech, Mizzou is 19-10. Program is not terrible. Is that the perception of other SEC media types, or is MU still seen as riding?
I have literally never asked another SEC media member, what do you think of Missouri? Ever. I don't care.
I mean, what's the difference? They don't ask me what I think of Georgia or Florida or LSU. Let's just do our jobs.
But the point is, I think people from the outside, go, man, how'd you lose to Vandy? But there's nobody outside of Columbia, Missouri saying that Barry Odom should be fired.
No.
Right.
Nobody.
Especially people that know that they're facing sanctions here.
Yeah.
You know, and they know the history of Missouri's program.
Sure. From my point of view, it didn't look like we really adjusted anything at half or throughout the game. Talking about the offense, what say you?
Again, when you can't run and you can't throw and you can't block, I don't know what you adjust. It's not going to work.
And you don't wait till halftime either.
Right.
When you're losing in the first half to Vandy, you don't. And what do they need to adjust on defense?
You're right. Nothing.
Just tackle a little bit better.
Maybe quit throwing punches. Don't jump off sides.
The penalties were just absolutely terrible. In what area does Barry Odom need to improve so the program can improve? Is it talent, better assistance, approach?
He's got to win close games. Like, that's what it really is. I mean, he's pretty good when he's a huge favorite. He's terrible when he's a huge underdog. He's something like 9-11 when the spread is less than 10 points, and he's been favored more than not. You got to win the games that are up in the air in the fourth quarter, and Missouri hasn't done a lot of that.
The football program makes it so hard to support every season with their crazy, erratic play. They never miss an opportunity to napalm any goodwill. Then the team gets angry at fans for being exasperated. It's year 4. They have the talent. Is it too much? Is it asking too much to play consistent?
I mean, find me more than 6 college football teams who do. You know?
Exactly.
I mean, is Wisconsin consistent? They had been all the way till Saturday.
They were consistently bad last year.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, this is college football.
Yeah.
This is when the body of work is so small, and we look at everything and pick it apart and nitpick everything so closely, and the stakes are so high every week. This is what happens.
It's college football outside of Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. That's it.
Yep. What happened to the offensive line, which was supposed to be our strength?
It's a good question. I mean, they said they had to just keep mixing guys around because they had to find the right combination, but did that hurt them? Because nobody knows who they're playing next to, or it's chicken or the egg. But man, they don't look very sharp.
Looked like the offense was running a lot of deep routes and they were struggling to get anyone open. Were they doubling Albert O? Brian had time to throw. What was Vandy doing? And what adjustments did we try to make?
Well, this is, I think, a legitimate argument. I looked it up. Albert O's been targeted 27 times in 7 games. That's not enough for a guy who he's your best receiver, not your best tight end. He's your best pass-catching player. They don't have anybody on this team like Emmanuel Hall or even Jamon Moore who should be taking catches from him.
Yeah, it's confusing. I mean, you know, sometimes I think they get frustrated with them. You know, I don't know if toughness is always his strength.
Right.
And then when he does catch a pass over a 5'11" corner, he's jawing in his face right in front of the official and getting a 15-yard penalty. I mean, come on, man. He needs to be better. He is better than what he's shown.
Yes, but he also, you got to throw him the ball 8 times a game.
Yep.
You just have to. He's the only guy on the team where you can go, I don't know, he's double covered. I'm going to give it a shot. No. It burned him last week, but you get my point.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for all the tweets. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk border war. You're watching Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Gabe DeArmond, Dave Matter, and I'm Bo Bayman. The big news off the field, 6-year commitment from Missouri and Kansas to play basketball again. The border war is finally back.
Yeah, and I don't know about you. I'd had a couple people say, hey, I think they're talking, but that was about it. This came out of nowhere on Monday night.
It really did. I think it's impossible to separate what's going on at Kansas with this. They needed a win, and some fans there are probably upset about it a little bit, but I think they needed to move on. And let's admit it, Bill Self probably doesn't have the leverage now under a new AD that he had for decades in Lawrence.
The next story is, does Bill Self coach any of these games?
Yeah, right. And they play the first one in Kansas City, then they go 4 years, twice on each campus, and then in Kansas City again. It's going to be just a raucous atmosphere come 2020.
And I love that people who are like my kids' age now get to know what this thing is about, like we all did growing up. Because in the end, college sports in general should be fun. This is fun. It's better than playing Mississippi State. It's better than playing Incarnate Word. It's better than any of the junk Kansas trots out in the non-con. You know, I mean, it should be fun. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll go 1-5, but it's fun game.
Well, and it'll be early enough in the year too, where it's not like you're not going to feel like the season hinges on this game at all.
Right.
You know, it'll be.
Some people's lives are going to hinge on this game, honestly. But
No doubt about it, but it's good that it's back. By the way, soccer lost one, volleyball won 2, and hey, we should mention Max Scherzer, of course, won Game 1 of the World Series as the Nationals beat the Astros, and he really gutted out an effort with not his best stuff last night.
We're going to be talking about him as the all-time greatest to come out of here in any sport at some point, maybe.
yeah, well, and I tweeted in like the 4th inning when it was clear he wasn't going to finish the game. I wanted to see Dave Martinez have to go to the mound because Max would have killed him.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you take me out there, I will throw 240 pitches, but I am not coming out of this game.
Yeah, we got about 15 seconds. Mizzou at Kentucky. Did the Tigers bounce back?
Yes, but I have no. I mean, I say yes, but I have no faith in it.
This is
I
the
don't
greatest.
know.
Do they bounce back?
Well, and then I want to say they'll win a close game, but they never do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
They're going to win 7-6 on a Nick Bolton fumble recovery.
There you have it. Want to thank everybody behind the scenes. Matt, Bill, Brian. That's Dave Matter and Gabe DeArmond. I'm Bo Bayman. Thanks as always for joining us. You've been watching Tiger Sidelines on MC22.